Might be a couple more coming in. I'm not sure. Might be it. It was kind of short notice, and I apologize for that. There was it just slipped my mind got too many things on the go at once, and this one sort of got left to the last minute. So we'll try and give everybody a little bit more notice the next time.
Sometimes those are the best meetings.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm very excited to seeing all the little sneak peeks at the stuff you're working on, Brian. There's a pile of stuff going on, and I would love, I think, everyone here, I think, would love to see what's going on. And maybe if you can walk us through a little bit what you've been up to, it would be dandy to see that.
Sure. You just wait a couple more seconds, or just keep going?
I think we could probably get started. And I'm recording it, so anybody who's missing it can pick it up later.
So I'll just share my screen, I guess. Share what? Well, do you want to talk about the PCB?
Yeah, we can do that maybe while you're pulling some things up.
Almost be a topic on its own, man. There's so many ideas, but you can sure see it in the AgOpenGPS form. How frustrated people are with the lack of information. And it's almost embarrassing, to say the least. What do you guys think? I mean, everybody asks the same kind of questions, the same basic questions. What do I need? Is it version 37 or version 2 or 9? Or it'd be really nice to say, build this board and this is how you build it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
if you're starting out,
the question maybe comes up more often. I think there's because you have extra pinouts on it, and I think that's where the questions start to come in. Like, what are all the extra things for, right? And I think initially when you built the board, your intention was, well, we can put other stuff on the same board if people want to, and that way it leaves a lot of flexibility. But I think in that flexibility is where the confusion lies. And maybe with that schematic you have pulled up, I know the questions kind of came up there about like the 12 volt outputs and the dog 2 inputs, outputs, how to do that, and the wheel angle sensor. You had a nice picture there, and what Richard and I were going back and forth on was making a tidy fritzing diagram that showed how the pinouts go, but maybe if you kind of walk through on the video just a minute, that would be helpful too. Yeah,
I think maybe one of the most confusing parts is just can everyone see the PC board?
Yep.
It's not a lot changed. Can you see my cursor going back and forth at all? Like the 2 lines?
We can see the crosshairs.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Good. Now, right now they're centered on the MMA.
Okay.
It's the 8452, like the good one, the med grade one.
Yep.
So that all needed to be redone and returned around, that sort of thing. When we spec the board, it shouldn't be one of 6 MMAs. It's, like Richard's good at that. He always says, don't buy the eBay crap, and it doesn't work anyway. Buy the right parts. And if you say the MMA 8452, then that's the one to use, and that's what's in the parts diagram, and that sort of thing. So, and of course, beside it is the ADS, is the ADD converter, and the Arduino. And right here where it says SDA and SCL, like those are the external connections for the I2C bus. And I was thinking, there you go. I mean, having too many options for too many people is to have I2C off the board, but then you should have like an I2C driver chip here, which protects the I2C and it protects it from lockup and noise and that sort of thing. So now you're kind of back to square one again, where you have just too many parts. So maybe what I'm thinking is just add Or maybe put the BNO here? I don't know. Should we have a connector for the BNO 55?
I think often what came up there was the length of cable, right? As far as the limitation when you go I²C in distance to a roof unit, if we're putting a BNO or something on the roof, right? Because what is it, a meter of cable?
Well, realistically, 10 centimeters.
Yes.
Sure.
You know, as soon as you add any length of cable, you add capacitance. And you see is absolutely limited to 400 picofarads. Now, a picofarad is not much. It's basically a piece of cable a meter long. But you have all these other traces and you have all the other parts and pieces, and you're probably at 250 already just on the board. So yeah, just enough to maybe mount the BNO beside and hot melt it. Or that. The other option, I know I'm not doing what you asked me to do. I'm talking about what we need on the board, but should there be a BNO spot right on the board?
I don't think so. I never got this thing working.
I can't hear you, Matthias.
Matthias, can you speak up a little bit? You're a little bit quiet.
I don't think we need the BNO because I never got it to work in the cab. It should be on the roof. So I don't think we need it here.
Wilbert's phone. I agree, Matthias. I think putting it on the board is just because it.
Can you show you what I have?
Say that again, Andreas.
I can show you my board. What I have done with beta.
Should I unshare?
Yes.
Hello, Richard.
Hi there, Brian.
Do you see my big picture? My picture. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yes. It's not here. It's at the customs at the moment, and it's like your board. Here is the MMA, and here is the connector for the ATS. And I also have here a connector for SCL and SDA. So we also have put the BNO on the board. So you can put a little cable 10 centimeters and put it away from all the electric stuff here. And yes, I have a place to put the motor controller and also the simple RTK board. At the moment, it's not connected with the Arduino. It's only a place to have it in the box.
Why didn't you put the simple RTK on top of your PCB to make it smaller?
Yes, we would like to have it all on the board and not make 2 layers of it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just sticking on it.
Yes, and I have only connectors for the MDS. So I have removed the Citron thing. Sorry, the IPD thing.
Yeah.
Whoever has the kids in the background, can you mute your audio? Unless it's Andreas.
I think I just muted Richard there. It might have been Richard. I don't know. I'm probably bedtime for them. Anyhow, I think it should be good now. Try it.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay. And most of the board is the same as Brian's, I think. here are the connectors for the auto steer switch, the work switch, and also a connector for the encoder. Input, output. So, in the most parts, it's the same as yours.
It should be the same software and everything, right?
Yes, it works with the same software. So you do not change anything. And here I have places for putting on LEDs. On the fourth board I have cables, but I don't like the cables. So the user can decide to put the LED on it or do it not. And yes, and I have used these connectors. They are from Wago, it's a German company. They're very expensive, but I think they're better than the screws.
How much will you sell the board for?
100.
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
That's a bit cheaper than Trimble.
Okay.
What's the thoughts on maybe, like, if we have that board in Europe, but maybe some for the North Americans, there's not as many, but maybe that's something that we have to think about a little bit. Like, if I like that setup that Andreas just has those boards, we order them from him, but then it might be easier if there's, on each continent, if someone else does the same thing.
Yes, I think Doppelgrau knows how difficult it is to sell boards to people. Okay.
No.
And I only sell this board as it is now. So I don't put MMA and things on it. So it's allowed to sell it as an electronic component. So it's not a ready-to-use board. Yes. It's only, yes, it's only a component, and it's not ready to use. And when it's ready to use in Austria, I'm getting problems. So it's not problems, but it's very difficult. I need a number. I need to pay something here and something there, yes. I think when I start it with a ready board, I need to pay 1,000 euros.
And for the 100,000 regulatories called CE with everything that goes with it. Yeah, and the nice wording is, if the device has it in an own function, then you get in all this trouble. So as long as the device you're selling has no own function, whoever decides what an own function is, you're more or less fine in Europe.
Yes, and there's also a difference between Austria and Germany. So we are in the European Union, but every country makes his own things.
I have a question to the work switch. Is it possible to use it with an analog signal or only with a switch?
Switch.
May you change it and use the Arduino's analog to digital converter to check the value of the analog input, so we can use the tractor's plug that delivers height signal of the hydraulic system?
I think it's possible. At the moment, there are optocouplers, and it's not possible.
Maybe use the other input of the ADS. Hasn't it two inputs?
Yes, he had
so
two inputs, and there are still 4 or 5 connectors free to use.
Yeah, so I think this would be a good idea to use the work switch with the analog input. It will work with a switch too, And if we use it with an height signal of the tractor's block, it will be a really good option.
Yes, I have still three A0 to A5 and D3. So you can connect something here, and here also the connectors A2 and A3 of the ADS.
Well, I would see one problem with the analog input. You have a place where you define the threshold. And for my PCB and with the ESP software, I define the threshold in the web interface. But with the basic Arduino setup, how should the threshold be defined when you have an analog input? Because then you want, if you, I would assume that if you have an analog input, you want to say, well, at 30%, I want to switch it on or off and not, or the other one says no, at 70%, depending on the implement.
I agree, but we have the same thing with the steer 0. So we can do it like this. Define the 0 point and that's all.
Yeah, but that would require not only changing the Arduino, but also the settings.
It's a thing we should decide before we roll out the whole stuff.
By we, you mean me?
All together. The designers of the PCB.
Yeah. Well, now's the time to put those, like that's what version 4 is now, to put the good ideas in.
I use it, this feature, because I've connected it to the tractor's block, and maybe we can tell the people to use this tractor block, because there is also a power, there are power lines within it. So you can get at this block the height of the hydraulics, the PTO speed, and you can get power out of this block.
But it's not for every tractor, I guess. It's just for yours.
I think the last 10 years they're all over. Yeah, my friend of 25 years still has it.
I suppose you could
really have to search
on the hydraulic lift as well, and generate that analog signal. But everything we do is a hydraulic lock. You just go down all the way. It's like down or it's up. There's no need to find a spot in between. Like, where would you use that?
Depends on the implement. I have it on my vineyard tractor, and when I'm cutting grass, it's very low, and I won't lift the machine very high. And when I'm doing kind of harrowing, things like that, I need to lift more. But I have the ESP software and the web interface, and then set a click use current threshold value, and that's all. But with the Arduino, we need another settings, like the steer 0 or something like that.
So do we make the hard decision and say, if you want to do that sort of thing, you use the ESP?
I won't mind.
Like we're getting back into that complexity of the basic board. But where do you draw the line on basic so that it's still useful? That's always the hard question.
Yeah. The problem is I can't really find an ESP at nano format. I bought the Arduino Internet of Things Nano 33, and but it's still an Arduino. There's not much memory. It has Wi-Fi, but that's all. So I agree. The Nano is a good decision because it will last for a very long time. It's used in educational environment, or go back to the Arduino Uno. In this format, we will get an ESP or everything else.
Then the board is big again.
Yeah, but we can maybe use the space under the Arduino to do the optocouplers or things like that.
Well, I would say it's also
Not easy.
Not
the
easy.
question how you want to manufacture the PCB. If you go to through-hole components, it's always, because they're a bit larger, more difficult to make, I would say, what I would call multi-layer stacks. But if but on the other hand, the through-hole components are way easier to solder for an average person. Of course, it's, if you have small SMD parts, it's no problem to stack different boards on top of each other. Try if cable is long enough. For example, on my board at the moment there is the F9P sitting on top of the rest. So it simply works because the parts below the F9P is an average maybe 1 or 2 millimeters. The largest part are the connectors. I think it's 6 millimeters. So with 10 millimeters spacing, everything is fine. So I think it's mainly a question how you want to distribute the core PCB. And if you don't want to set up some kind of more or less centralized distribution, then I think you need to go with through-hole components, even if I don't like them. Because, well, they're more or less anyone that knows the hot end of a soldering iron can solder through-hole components. And then, yeah, every bit of complexity is getting, well, hard because you need more space on the PCB. And so I would say the basic PCB, keep it simple, stupid, and maybe later offer a second advanced PCB or whatever I would call it, for people who want to play more than driving along the lines.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think just keep it simple, keep it the way it is for now. And I mean, down the road, that might be a thing. I mean, I tried to put a little video up there of me soldering something for the first time, and I'm just learning. So I think that's probably the way to go. A lot of people are probably in that boat. They're just trying to do stuff themselves. And if we make it easier for us laymen, that would be a good thing. I think if it's okay with you, maybe we should move the discussion a little bit more to version 4, or maybe other ends of the PCB. I'll let you run with that, Brian, a little bit.
All right. Zoom meeting, where are you? Share. Okay. Well, let's start at the end of the beginning. KML files. That's something that took a little bit of learning, obviously. Like, just to program these ideas is one thing, but to be able to learn how to program them, that seems to take like a big chunk of time. And so I've never, I used to generate the KML files just by printing to a text file and then print the coordinates, and then like it would just, where is one here? Like this, where you see where it just writes lines to a text file, and that's your KML file. And then just fill in the coordinates, that sort of thing. That was fine, for a simple one like flags and that sort of thing. But if you're talking like a 1 meg KML file, well, this isn't going to work. So there's a pretty neat class called, it's called a KML or an XML text writer is what the class is. and you create a class, and you create a file, and you create this XML text writer, and you give it a name and an encoding for what you want. And it's kind of like first in, first out. So you have your start elements, like here you start your document, and here is your main start element, which is a KML file, and your document. And then like when you open it up in Google Earth, can you see Google Earth?
No.
Shoot, got to share each thing individually. Oh. Okay, let's do it the hard way. Now can you see it? Can you see?
I can.
Oh, this is fun, hey? Now you can see it?
I
Can you see?
can.
Yeah, okay. So if you open up the field, you have all of these folders, and then there's AB lines, and here's the name of the AB line. And then as soon as you click visible, then it is visible. So the AB lines and the curved lines, you can tell it in the KML code to not be visible. And the flags, individual flags, the inner and outer boundaries, and then every one of the sections, every little marking of every one of these sections should come up as well. Like here you can see it's divvied up into individual sections and that sort of thing. So to do that manually was just never going to happen. Now I have to go back. I know this is more than you probably wanted to know, but so within these place mark tags, there's a place mark here and a place mark here. This is an individual object in Google Earth. And so then you have your line styles, and then you can extract the name from the saved file, the text file, that sort of thing. And then the fun begins with, it's all in UTM coordinates, but Google Earth wants latitude and longitude. So what we have to do is then take the convergence out, like twist it back to where true UTM is, aligned up on its own grid, and then add back in the offsets, and then convert that newly formed UTM back into latitude and longitude. Andreas, this is what I was missing with the culture stuff, because then it just made nothing but commas. So then you create a string from that one point, and then you go back. Where are we here? Now that you've created that string, you can then write out that line and then write all the end elements. So these are the slash, the coordinates, slash, line string. So in this section, and then you do that, you create a new place mark for every curve, every AB line, every section, and that sort of thing. So the beauty of this is, like for colors and things like that, you can extract the color information from the section file and create and color that object and the width and that sort of thing, each one individually. Does that make sense? So then you do that with all the different sections, all the boundaries, all of that. And then the right start elements, and then the right element string. What this does is it creates color, and then the actual color value, and then the end tag, which is the slash, and then color. So that just creates a single line. You guys all know what KML files look like, so I'm not going to bother going through that. So then that's how you generate the KML file. I'm going to have to stop share again. I wish I could just share my screen. This would be a lot easier. Where is? There it is. Can you see AgOpenGPS? Yeah, okay, good. Now, load the field. It's in German. I'm gonna put it in English. Oh my God, this is painful.
Yeah, that computer thing is not really yours, I guess.
Okay, share. Now we're back. Oh, that's Google Earth. Oh, for goodness sakes.
I think there is an option there, Brian. If when you click share screen, it shows basic
Yep.
and then it shows advanced. There's a tab on the top. If you go advanced, you can pick a portion of screen. I don't know if that's selects it or not, but you might give that a try. That does just a little piece, eh? That's maybe not what you're looking for.
I think we can make it bigger. Is that more? Can you see my whole screen now?
Yeah, we can almost. Only the taskbar, but it works.
Can you see, how does it look? Can you see my whole screen?
Yes, now you can see the whole screen.
Yes. Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. So you see AgOpenGPS. Okay, where? Now my computer doesn't work. Can't do anything. So that just locks it up completely. It just you can just share a static image. You can't share a particular application.
Okay.
Here now you can see it. So this is a new one, touch. I know we're talking about multi-boundaries and multi-external boundaries and the stuff that Daniel's working on, and I had so many headaches and nightmares from multi-boundaries that this is that touch idea where it brings up all the fields in your fields directory and then displays it on an OpenGL screen, and then you would just select the field you want. So like a visual representation, and then it would just open the field. Okay, so colors. This is the section color. So you see these custom colors here? There's 16 colors that you can define and save. It never did this before. I figured out how to do this. So if we pick, say, pinky color, and we change it to bright red or something, and we the custom colors, now that one will always be red. So now our section is red, but when we go back, it's still red in that custom color. So you can save 16 different custom colors now, and that works for any of the color settings. You can still pick one of these colors, create your own color, do whatever, but these 16 colors are stored now in settings. And then you can save that, they're saved in the individual environments. Like if we go add the custom colors and go okay. Now if we just turn it on, see now it's red. And so we pick any other color we want, purple. You see it doesn't change right away until you switch it on and creates a new patch, starts a new color. But any one of these colors, like your day mode, you know, for your background, see it's all these same 16 colors. So if you save those 16 colors, they will show up every time you pick a color. So that's kind of like your palette now. Rather than saving individual, I let Windows save it. And then we just save it. When we save our environment, those 16 colors are saved in your environment. So if you want different colors for seeding, or you want different colors for spraying, that sort of thing, you would just then reload your environment.
That's really cool. Does it section control still go based off green, or is that different now?
That's a whole different OpenGL in the background. And so it writes all the sections again, and it doesn't matter what color you set here. This is strictly for visual and for Google Earth. So
Very
the section control and all that works just fine. Like if we go section control here, even though we're purple, the section control will work. It doesn't matter what color you're at. So that all still works exactly the same as before. None of that's changed. And then you have light and dark mode. Are you guys finding that the sunset, sunrise is pretty accurate?
Haven't tried it around that time yet.
There's sun, 8:16 is sunrise and 16:59 is sunset here.
I've been out 3 days ago, and when it got dark, the program changed to dark mode, so it works pretty good.
Pretty cool.
It was. I tested it too. It was exactly 1 minute after the time that was shown. So 1695, 59 is at 1700. It will go to dark mode.
Yeah, so that works pretty
yeah.
good.
Yes, it does.
Okay, Brian.
Yep.
Just a small question to the KML files. So at the moment, there are many files, boundary text, contour text, and text. And now many of the information is also in the field KML file now. Is that correct?
Everything is in the field KML.
Yes. Is that an option for the future? Only have this file for working with it. So store everything in the KML file, or is it going too big?
Well, it's the KML file is huge. Like there's so much text in it that, like, to add like the section file, you have to open the entire file, append on the end of the file, and close the file. If the file is really, really big, then that can really slow down everything. So there's still going to be the individual text files, but now we kind of have both. Whoops. Everybody like the thing? The KML file, you can use that in QGIS. If it wasn't such a pain, if you open the file or field.kml in QGIS, you can open the individual flags, sections, boundaries, whatever you want, do calculations, kind of like we were showing on Telegram there. You can manipulate each of those folders of individual items and do whatever you want. You can export them, you can turn them into shape files, that sort of thing. I know the ideal would be to, be able to do it all in KML and maybe in the future and import shape files. But I think it's a pretty good start to have everything in one KML file.
Okay.
Because in QGIS, like if you just wanted boundaries, should I bring up QGIS?
Sure,
Sorry.
yeah. That's QGIS is one program that has a pretty steep learning curve. I've just played around with a little bit, and there's a lot there. It's a pretty powerful program, so you can do a lot with it. It's pretty exciting.
I know nothing about it. It's an absolutely huge program, but it's all open source and free. It's just starting up. So any questions about color and KML and that sort of thing?
Can you just kind of, you sort of hinted at it there with the color kind of preview. Right now it's kind of in purple. So if you change the color, you set your custom color, you just kind of pick from the palette every time. Is that what it is to change the color?
You can have any color you want.
Yeah, but as far as if you're going down in the field and say, okay, I want my next pass to be green, what would your kind of work mode go to do that? Yeah.
There and then green. And now it's green.
Got it.
Made this
Cool.
button here. So you go there, and then you pick one of the colors. Blue. Okay. On and off, and now it's blue. It's pretty fast.
So if you click on that, if you were to be able to click on that blue button, like say you clicked on it every time, would it go through each of the custom colors you picked? Is that how that works? Or does it bring you back up to the palette screen every time?
It always brings it up to the palette.
Okay.
And then you choose. Yeah, I thought long and hard about what to do there, but then anytime you make a change and then you have to update, like if you right clicked and then had several colors, but this is pretty fast. You know, then you have access to all your colors. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I guess the way I would use it is, let's say I'm seeding, and I'm seeding at a different rate at some point in time.
Yep.
I want to visually go back later and see, oh, how did that seeding rate affect what it looks like in the field today? So then I could go back, pull up my KML file in Google Earth or whatever, and then see a visual representation. So even with the labels, like if you label where the color starts, you can say, well, this was such and such a rate, right? So you can put a flag down and say that's what it is. And that's exactly what I'm looking for.
That's exactly like I did, like around the outside. I did the outside one in green, you know, and now if we, you know, this is your different rate. Now it's in blue. You know, as you get to the end. You know, so then you would do a few passes and the color would be blue. And then if you want color, you just would. So it works pretty slow. And then now you would have your blue passes.
Very cool.
And Google Earth, which you can't see.
I wonder if Jitsi, does anybody have more experience with Jitsi? Would you be allowed to do a full screen share with Jitsi?
Can you see Google Earth?
Yeah, we can see Google Earth.
Okay, over here in My Places, if you right click My Places and go add a network link.
Yeah.
And now we browse to documents, wherever you have your field, AgOpenGPS, fields, north, I think it is. And we pick field KML, we go open, and then here we add what its refresh rate is, either once, periodically, and here we can adjust how often it goes back and reads that KML and then updates. So we can say, like, it updates every minute. Whoops. So we say update, you know, every 30 seconds or whatever. So now it says untitled, so we delete this guy. And then hopefully after 30 seconds, that should update, and then you'll have your field. So as you're doing your field, the network link goes to your hard drive and reads the KML, which is saved constantly, like every minute, and then it will update Google Earth. Now, if you make that fast enough, if you make AgOpenGPS do it every second, and you read this every second, that's what that video I was showing, you can almost do it in real time-ish, and then display it. What's this guy doing? So he's still running. So hopefully this works, but my luck today seems to be working. But you get the idea. That network link goes and gets its information and then updates here. I don't know why it's working.
That is really cool. I didn't know this is like a cheat code for Google Earth. I didn't realize that was all in there. That was built in.
Yeah. I might be doing something wrong. But I'll make a video on how to do that when I figure it out properly. Maybe I didn't turn it on or that sort of thing. Yeah, well, that's a different one. Oh, that's a different link. That's a different field. Sorry, I linked it to the wrong field.
I did write 1 hour before, and always need to save the field and reopen it in AgOpenGPS. Then the Google Earth did update.
Yeah, that's because the version that's on the internet doesn't, or on Telegram, it doesn't auto save it. You have to click the button.
That's a upgrade feature.
There now, the next time it updates, it should just run over there. But you get the idea. See, there it is now. And then as it's, Windows says it works for me. So then as we're driving, you can see what this one's already updated.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's longer now. You can't see AgOpenGPS.
If
so the next time it updates, which is a minute, this will all be filled in.
And I think if you put the folder into a Google Drive, you can do it over the internet.
Yes, you could literally, anybody in the world could see you working on the field.
Yes.
Your wife can keep an eye on you.
I think many big
Make sure he's working.
It's a bad function, very bad function.
So you,
It's like spyware.
if you have a big farm,
You just see it just updated. It just updated. Now we're over here.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
Yes.
So you could turn those to being, like I say, 10 seconds or 5 seconds. But every time the KML is saved, it rewrites the entire thing. And if you have a lot of sections, it can get quite large. But if you have a fast computer, I mean, this is an i7. Everything works fast on this computer. And but it shouldn't be much of a delay because Windows does all that in another thread.
So it doesn't affect the frame count in AgOpen as much as far as doing all that work in the background process-wise and colors and sections and that whole business, or is that, like you said, it's threaded?
Well, no,
somehow?
like the sections themselves. Here, I'll have to unshare and share. This took a little thinking. It all takes some thinking, but share. So, okay, can you see the sections? Is it like a text file?
Yep, that's what we see.
You see sections, now it says V4. When you open an old field, the old field, this is the color of this patch. You can see these little individual patches, like there's 5 lines in this patch. And the first line is always the color. So there's like 2 triangles in this. There's your start of your triangle, and there's the end of the triangle. So it's just like a block. In the first line, 142, that's your red value out of 255, 185, and 143. That's your for this patch. Like say now, formerly, it used to look like this. There were just the X and Y coordinates, or easting and northing coordinates, and then this wasn't here at all. And then that would say 4. So when I import an old field, what I do is I import the whole text file, I add what the current day color is to this line, and then add a 0 on the end. And that way it updates an old field. So the downside is you can no longer open that field in version 3. But after using version 4, who would ever use version 3? So that's the way the sections work. So every one of these patches, you know, and there's millions of them, they have a color and an X, Y, and then now that we have this third component here, we could put altitude there or elevation, and you could create elevation maps from all the sections. So it does open up a lot more possibilities in the future. So now we have 3 values. We only use 2 at this point. So that third one we can use as elevation and create elevation grids.
Cool.
Is it possible to import this back to AgOpenGPS?
Not yet. But when it's in that file format, easy.
Another option would be to get the background of Google Earth to AgOpenGPS. That would be a really, really good feature.
Well,
Having
it'd be have AgOpenGPS completely work in Google Earth.
I think it's a good feature, but it's only a visual thing. So I think that the sending information from AgOpenGPS to Google Earth is better than have the background on the screen. So I don't need the background of Google Earth.
Well, there you go, Matthias.
It does look cool, though. I agree. But
it looks cool.
But you have done it before. It's like you can still do it, right? It's just setting that 0, 0 to the bottom left-hand corner of your field. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, using the boundary and then crop it into the boundary, and then I use the maze grid, the thing that drives around. I use that structure to, and then then you can make your VR maps and you can read it all. And I mean, it's all just commented out. It just needs some massaging and making it work a little better, but it's all there.
Mm-hmm. Looks like we got 6 or 7 minutes left here. You were kind of showing the reverse function there, went through Telegram, and you just showed us a little bit there ago. Can you kind of take us through how that works a little bit? How you got that working?
I have to unshare share again, right?
I guess so.
AgOpenGPS. Share. Can you see AgOpenGPS?
We see Visual Studio, I think.
I mean, sorry, Visual Studio. I need to stop this. Exit. Restart. The other thing is restart. When it says, please restart AgOpenGPS. Because you can only have one version running, that's a little bit of a struggle. Okay, Sim. Can't see them because this is in the way. Classes. It's getting to be really big, this project.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so can you see this?
Yep.
It says do sim tick every 200 milliseconds or 1/5 of a second. This thing runs, and what it does is it takes how far do we want to move, and what's our heading, and what's our steer angle. And then it takes our current latitude and longitude position, and from the heading and the step distance, it calculates the next latitude and longitude. Like, where am I going to be 200 milliseconds from now? You know that the farther the step distance, the farther you're going to be away, shorter, that sort of thing. And if we turn, then the latitude and longitude is going to be over here, that sort of thing. So our step distance, like, to make it go backwards was ridiculous. All I had to do was just tell my step distance to go backwards.
Okay.
Someone would have told me that. That would have been easy. So down here we see calculate new position from bearing and distance. We have our latitude, our current latitude and longitude. Here, the degrees that we want to drive, and our step distance. And that's in kilometers, so we divide that to get that into meters. And then the other trick that you need to do is make sure you put your heading is calculated from the true reading of GPS. Does that make sense? You know, like in
fix to fix.
Yeah, don't use fix to fix. Use from the GPS, from the sentence, that true heading from the NMEA sentence, because we don't change that. If we go fix to fix, right? If we go this way and it says it calculates it to 90 degrees, if we use fix to fix, then if we try to back up, now the fix is 270. But we're not changing it in our NMEA sentence when we build our sentence. right? When we build our sentence, we're not changing this heading true. We're just changing our step distance to be backwards. So the heading true, if you use that as your heading, then it'll just back up. So what I should do is, if you're in simulator, to not use fix to fix, but use the heading true. So that's one thing I need to add yet. So that it doesn't matter where you set it in the IMU settings, like where you get your heading from. When you're in simulator, it'll pick the heading true because it's all calculated here. And I was looking at this last night, I forget completely how I calculated all this stuff.
Came to you in a dream.
This 0.016539, there's about 8 calculations in that one number. I don't remember how I got there. I should put a note. But. So does that make sense? We're just telling it to back up. Like if you had dual antenna, and then you chose, your true heading, that's why you can back up in AgOpenGPS with the dual antenna, because your heading is pointing the correct way, and it doesn't matter about your position. With one antenna, you don't know where you're going. Like it's just one point of reference. Like holding on to one end of a chain is. And that's why it spins around, is because now both your heading true and your fix to fix are going the wrong way. Thing spins around and then drives the other way. So that's backing up.
Has anybody seen that Syria video of them testing the backup function with an F9P?
No.
No, I didn't.
No.
Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's up on YouTube. He was just playing around with reverse, and he was driving the tractor in reverse using Syria. And I was just thinking, there's a lot going on there to make that work. I remember the video you had done of driving in reverse and how it's so sensitive, but this kind of unlocks maybe a cool possibility down the road to, if we recognize we're in reverse, then we change all of those settings, and then we can have guidance in reverse too. I've been doing a lot of snow blowing lately, and that made me think of that.
It gets tricky with a hitch. We all know how difficult it is to back up. And it's crazy because when I use the air seeder hitch and you have 2 hitches, you can back up those 2 hitches the same way as difficult as it is to back up an air seeder. It simulates it perfectly, like where you have to, it's really complicated. But it does work. Like the physics for the hitches work. And like even backing up, like I showed in a little video, as you turn this way and back and forth, you can put the hitch where you want it and go. So it does work.
Very cool.
Now on the tractor.
All right, I'm seeing we're kind of running out of time here. Is there anything else that somebody else wanted to bring up or ask questions of? I'll just kind of leave that open for a couple minutes.
I just want to ask the Arduino settings, the communication between AgOpenGPS and the Arduino settings. Are you done with it? And is there a documentation? So if other programmers want to do Arduino code, they need this documentation.
I have to get that together, but yes, it's working really well. There's a lot of settings. Holy moly! I'll put it on. What's the best way to share? Just on Telegram, or maybe on the forum is probably better. It's a better text form, and then it's there.
Yeah. I like an Excel sheet with all the stuffs. I think it's the best way. Put the Excel sheet on GitHub.
Yeah, they've all changed. So,
yep.
And that's the beauty of a machine control board, like you were talking about the A to D converter off the implement and that sort of thing. auto steer board and you have a machine control board. I think that's still, it gives the flexibility that this is an auto steer board and then do everything else you want to do on your machine control board. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Here, I'll just share quickly. Are we going to get kicked out?
No kicking out. We got unlimited time. So.
Why can't I see it? Oh, because I'm sharing. Stop share. Share. Oh man, I got a lot of things running. Where's QGIS? There it is. There, can you see QGIS?
We can.
Yes, we can.
Whoops. There's still 2 unhandled layers. So here if we go into fields, and this is that field nothing, and then we go into our field KML, we open it up, see that we can just open up sections. And there's our section, right in QGIS. And then we can add boundaries. And there's our boundary layer. So over here, we have boundaries and sections, and you can turn them on and off accordingly. And then you can do all your calculations, do whatever you want right in QGIS. So pretty cool.
Pretty cool. It is.
That is very
There's our
cool.
AB line. There's our AB line. And there's our curve line right there.
B.
We turn the other stuff off. There's our AB line and there's our curve line.
Or would tram lines be saved in that same file too in the KML, or is that different? I don't want to bring that up necessarily.
It's tougher because it's tough, but it would be really nice to have tram lines, wouldn't it?
I don't use them, but I think other people do.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool when seeding the tram lines and yeah, use the sprayer with it. It would be a really good feature.
Yeah. I mean,
Good in
there's
Europe.
points. I mean, it's just another section in the KML file. There are a lot of points.
What size is that KML file kind of on a, say, a 20-acre field? Just for kind of a rough calculation, like would be talking megabytes, or what are we at?
1/4 of a megabyte. Like the one that we're just using right now is 1/4 of a megabyte. So 250K.
Not big. Not that bad.
But I did one that was like 20 hectares, and it was around a meg. So I mean, it's not impossible.
Yeah, still very manageable.
Yes.
Yeah, it could be like 1/3 the size if we didn't want individual section colors. Because remember when it's creating the style, remember there's that style field where you style the outer line. A section in Google Earth is you have a line, it's a polyline with fill. So you define what the characteristics of the outer line is, and then how do you want to fill it, and its opacity and transparency and that sort of thing. But there's something multi-geometry where you would one of those style for color, fill, and line, and then you would do multi-geometry, and then you would just draw all of you just have coordinates instead of redoing every patch with style and place and that sort of thing. You lose your color. And I was thinking that the color is the benefit. That's being able to mark plots, being able to mark weird stuff. That's the true advantage of having Google Earth, is able to do the color. I mean, you could do both, I suppose. You know, one color version and a stripped down version.
No, I think the color is important when you're working with Google Earth. I would agree with that.
What about creating a KML that is just sections?
Yes.
Of a single color?
Is it right? The sections the biggest thing of the KML file.
By far. Because
Yes.
all those blocks.
Yes. So coming back what I asked before, maybe if you remove the section of these files, you can use it to work it with AgOpenGPS for store or IP lines and or in this file. So without sections, it would be possible. So maybe there are one working file, so all the information is in the KML, IP lines and so on, and there is a second file only for the section or together to display it in Google Earth.
And that's the one you do the network link with, is just the compressed section file.
Yes.
Doing, not that you can't see what you're doing anyway, but.
So, and maybe it's also possible to work with QGIS with the IP lines or the boundaries then. So you can change boundaries and or in QGIS, and if you have the KML as working file for AgOpenGPS.
The other concept is the ISO KML.
Yes.
Which is huge.
Yes.
But I think we're heading in the right direction, because all the XML, KML, like KML is just a Google Earth term. It's all extensible markup language, XML. Just that blocking of data, right? There, where's the thing?
Maybe with this system we can add variable rate to AgOpenGPS in the long run.
With ISO KML.
With the whole KML files and the coverage maps and application maps.
Yeah, because in Google Earth you can even save as a shape file. So if you had a shape file, I don't know if you can go to shape file to KML, but that might be an option too.
So here's can you see the KML file?
Yep.
Here's like AB lines. See, and we can pull the name of the AB line out of the saved file. I mean, you can do anything you want with this. I mean, but it takes, bajillions of bytes to do it, because it's, I mean, remember, we're just saving just the UTM values. It's much faster, but this tells you a lot of information. Here where it says visibility, it's the Klingon invisibility line, cloaking device. What that does is, you remember the little check marks beside? Remember when I opened it up in Google Earth, there was the check mark beside sections and boundaries and that, but there was no section, the check mark beside the AB lines and that sort of thing. If you don't want them to default to come up, all you do is you set the visibility to 0. And then they open unchecked in Google Earth. And if you want to see your AB lines, then you just select them and click them. But here's the line string. But so to do it the short way, like right now we have a polygon, and then there's the end tag of polygon. So we go tessellate, outer boundary is linear ring, coordinates, and then we put our coordinates all in. But for every one of these sections, we have our section color and our fill style, and our transparency and everything. For every one of those little tiny sections, and sometimes they're just a little tiny block, you have all of this information for one section. But if you do multi-geometry, then all you would have is just this part, basically, I think from polygon here. So much shorter. Just the polygon itself, you would have that as a listing. So it saves probably 2/3 of the whole file without re-saying the color and the style and all that sort of thing. You just have your line of coordinates. It's much faster and easier to read.
Another question to the you can you can define names and boundaries and things like that. Would it be possible to when using multi-boundary to define names so you can fit them together, the outer and the inner boundaries? Well, I think the problem was it was not possible to combine the outer and the inner boundaries together, which belong together. And if you can define names like the name of the field or a number of the field, so you can get a relation between the inner and the outer boundaries.
Yeah, the problem wasn't knowing which one was which. It was interfacing that to the human to be able to manipulate them. That was the hard part.
Okay, would it be possible to generate all this stuff in Google Earth and import it to AgOpenGPS? So the user can import his data, his shapefiles from the government stuff to Google Earth, draw the inner boundaries, and export it to AgOpenGPS. So everything is set together and working, and then AgOpenGPS could handle it.
Well, AgOpenGPS already does that. You can have multiple boundaries, and you just import them in the boundary field.
Yeah, but the inner and outer boundaries are not, there's no relationship between them.
Yes, there is. The inner boundaries are within a field, or within an outer boundary. You can
but
boundaries.
Okay, if I set it in Google Earth, does AgOpenGPS know which one is which?
No, because the boundaries themselves aren't named in AgOpenGPS.
Okay, so this would be maybe a possibility to give different names of boundaries and have a relation between inner and outer boundary. So name it boundary field number 5, and the other one is field number 4, and inner 5 and inner 4.
But that's not where the problem is. The problem is things like U-turn and figuring out where to turn, because now you have a line that dissects multiple boundaries. You don't know where the thing starts and where the thing stops. I mean, we can make a chart where the boundaries are. That is no problem. The problem is all the rest of the multiple boundaries. Knowing where you are you inside a boundary, are you outside a boundary? You're outside of a boundary when you're outside of another outside boundary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand.
You know, and then trying to figure out, I mean, with a nice square field, no problem. But if it's shaped like a kidney bean or a question mark, you know, or like that sort of a field, as you cross inside and outside the boundaries, then how do you know where to make the U-turn? Like, it just, yes, you can do multi-boundaries, possibly if you only had outer boundaries. I tried for 2 months to make this work, and it just kept into more and more and more complicated problems.
Okay.
Maybe the other possible concept is to have one big outer boundary around all of your fields.
Okay. What I think, many farmers don't need the inner boundaries. So they like to display the outer boundaries. So would it be possible if you do import, you say only import all fields as boundaries?
It would be a completely different AgOpenGPS.
Okay.
Because the way AgOpenGPS now is it relies on one outer boundary.
Okay.
And then all the other boundaries are
Yes.
just classic inner boundaries.
Just a question for loading the fields. Wouldn't it be a possibility that all outer or maybe outer and inner boundaries of fields are shown on the average map and so centered with where you are, and just select the one? Because I think in most cases people know when they're entering a new field. At least I hope so. But yeah, the naming scheme might be weird or not 100% clear. But if you can choose based on your location, get the current field or which fields are around me, and just select the one you want to work on now, I think that should solve many problems, or have many people use cases where they need to change the fields so often.
Well, I agree, and that's what this is supposed to be. Is it will go and read all of the fields in your fields directory, and then create the outer boundaries. And the same way you make AB lines by touch, you would just touch inside the field, and then that field will load.
Can you also show where you are?
Yeah, because
currently?
where you are would be the center of the screen.
Yeah, right. Okay, check.
And then over here, what you can have is up-down arrows to make it bigger.
Yes.
You know, if your fields are 50 kilometers apart, well then, or if they're 2 kilometers apart, you know, then you just zoom in and out of all of your fields. You know, or you could also have it, so you could move it over, whatever. But if you're you don't need to load the field if you're 20 kilometers away from it. I don't think. I mean, you got lots of time by the time you're there to load your field.
Yeah.
I think like if there's 10 fields right around you, pick the field you want because you know what it looks like.
Yes, I think this is very good. And what I think, if you can do an option that this is always visible, like the top field, and you say, okay, this is this zoom, and you only see the fields around you. You set 1 kilometer, and if you touch a field, it closes the current field and opens the next field. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So you can switch very quickly from one field to another. Just click on it, and actually AgOpenGPS closes the old field and opens the new field.
Yep.
Yes.
Good solution.
Here's the rub. There's always every field has its own start position, and every field has. Remember, like the UTM, the actual UTM number is huge. It's like for me, it's like 6 million meters away from the equator. That's where I farm. And so what we do is we subtract, 6.9 million meters away so that I end up at 1 meter. And then I use those numbers because like floating point in the computer is kind of a funny word because you have 64 bits of data, but it's actually not that accurate because as you use more bits farther out to make a big number, you lose on the other end. So if you start with a number where the same number of decimals or same number of digits on either side of the decimal, then you can get more accurate. It's like you have to position your number based on kind of where you want to work. Now that said, every field that I'm going to open to make a boundary, I have to read its offsets, and then I have to add the offsets back to its UTM coordinates, and then read all the UTM coordinates that way, and then pick one UTM offset, and then draw the boundaries on that using that single new UTM offset for all of them. So it is fiddly. So you can't really do that real time. You know, you can't have it open all the time, because as you save boundaries and as you do other things, that data is going to very quickly become out of date. So to have it open all the time, it might not work. I don't know. But I think there needs to be the reality that you can't expect, you know, this to do everything. But the one thing it will do really well is if I hit touch, I want to touch open a field, and the field that it brings up, that will be accurate information right there. Pick your field. As soon as you touch your field, it loads it. And then away you go.
Perfect. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up here, and all right, you guys think this time is okay? Like time of day? Just kind of raise your hands if you think time of day is okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Time of week?
Yep.
Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays?
Mondays is good for me.
Mondays is better? Okay.
Yes, for me too.
All right. Not for Andreas, he says. Okay.
Wednesday.
All right. Anyway, we're going to wrap things up. We'll put stuff up on in the Telegram group if we want more info, but we'll kind of figure on roughly 2 weeks from now. We'll figure out maybe the day of the week. Yes. But it looks like this time works best for most. So we'll go from there and we'll say bye.
Can you put that link of the Soraya up on Telegram?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll stick it in there.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.